T-Dog, J-Boy, and me, I'm Lugs. Our pride and joy is pumping our mugs. Be careful, kids, it could get rough. We're flipping our lids on sports and other stuff.
Welcome to Sport Weasel Central. I'm Lugs.
I'm J-Boy.
And I'm T-Dog.
Hey, fellas, I got the church bulletin again this week, and there was this, see if this post was in yours. Miss Charlene Mason saying, "I will not pass this way again," giving obvious pleasure to the congregation.
I'm not familiar with Charlene.
She doesn't go to your church. All right, so welcome to Sports and Other Stuff, lively and unrehearsed. This episode, we talk about the NFC West. The saga of NFL running backs continue. The Colts' Jonathan Taylor has asked for a trade. Will he get one? We'll see. Plus, Broncos skipper Sean Payton says Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos was one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history last year. And he says, everything I heard about from last season, we're going to do the opposite. Lugs, what do you say about Mr. Payton's attack and his attack dogs and Mr. Hackett?
Well, I'd have to say that it's a first for me that one coach goes after another. But Sean Payton told the truth. Nathaniel Hackett, the name says it all. Hackett. You know, he's a hack.
Boy.
And Payton came back and he says, you know, he shouldn't have said that, and he's going to call him up. Apparently he hasn't called him up yet to apologize. And I don't know. Rodgers had sort of a weak defense. He goes, he was arguably my favorite coach. Okay, arguably. Favorite coach of what? You know. So anyway, I guess they will have to make that game, the Broncos in the 5th week of the season, the Broncos and the Jets. That's got to be prime time, baby. Because you know those boys are going to be busting each other up. That'll be good stuff.
Circle it on the calendar. You're right. T-Dog, what's your take on that?
I kind of go along with what Lug said. It's just, you know, because Hackett brought it up. There's a code that you don't go after each other. But,
is there a code, though? I guess there is.
Well, I guess particularly when they're on both the same side of the defense. Obviously, we've seen instances where offensive-minded coaches really go after defensive-minded head coaches and vice versa. I mean, they were on the same team, and you know, obviously Ditka, you know, he had no love lost with True. Buddy Ryan.
True.
So
good point.
You know, like it does happen, and yeah, like. Denver was one of the worst offenses. You know, they averaged a little over 325 yards of offense game, which, you know, wasn't great. I think they averaged less than 17 points a game. 16.9 points a game, which, again, in this league is not going to win you a lot of games, particularly when your head coach was an offensive-minded coach. And you spent all this money and trade all these draft picks for Russell Wilson, and he fell on his face. And what makes it worse, if you look at the last 2 games Russell Wilson played after Nathaniel Hackett had been let go, he had 2 of his best games with the Broncos. I'm not going to say he was the Russell Wilson of old, the let Russ cook quarterback that people crave for, I guess, in Seattle, but He played well against the Chargers and Chiefs. Again, not like pushover defenses, so it's not like he took on paper tigers. I just think you know, it was also odd that he tried to defend Russell Wilson's bad approach last year by saying he was enabled by Hackett, the GM George Payton, and the president of the Denver Broncos. I don't know about the president of the Broncos. George Payton is still the GM. So it tells you how the power dynamics of that workplace works. Like George Payton is essentially just GM in name only, I would say, from how much Peyton's getting paid. I believe he's getting paid $20+ million a year is speculated. The numbers never came out on Sean Payton's contract, but and a lot of these people just came off lame in this ordeal because Rodgers shot back at Peyton at
right
how insecure he was to take down another man to set himself up. I mean, this whole fiasco with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay, wasn't that it? Like, he essentially was going at the GM of the team.
Right.
And, talking about how he didn't know what he was doing, where, again, I think J-Boy would agree. When you look at the roster of Green Bay, the GM's done a pretty good job of putting talent on that team. The Matt LaFleur, I know Luggs doesn't agree with it. I think LaFleur is a good coach. That was hired by the GM. So I find it interesting that a guy doesn't see how he's a hypocrite in Aaron Rodgers on this. And then the funniest one is just, look, Robert Saleh did a great job of turning the Jets defense around. And, obviously if Breece Hall didn't get injured last year, they maybe make the playoffs. But him trying to appeal to young people is very bizarre. He said his reaction to it is, he said, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping, so hate away. It's just like, what the hell, man?
What? What was that? What was that? What?
Quit trying to
Hello?
Try to act like you're 22 years old. I'm sure even
Hipster.
22-year-olds are like, man, that we don't even talk like that. That's 10 years ago, like talk.
Yeah, what's that talk?
Yeah.
Luggs, do people call each other up on the phone? You said Peyton was going to call up Hackett. Do they even talk on the phone anymore? I mean, seriously.
I don't know, but that's what Peyton said. By the way, my favorite, just weird take on this was Colin Cowherd, who said that the football gods did not like Peyton's comments, and that's the reason two of Denver's top receivers are out for the season. They got injured the day after he made the comments in practice.
Wow.
That was just the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Colin Cowherd, whom I have had respect for in the past, that one kind of put the legs out from under him for me. It was like, wake up, brother.
Lightning strikes. Okay.
But I would say that Peyton needed to solidify the team behind him. And that's why he took those shots, because those guys, they're professionals, they have pride, and they just got dragged through mud, crap, and everything else last year. And it was on Hackett. I mean, you go back and look at the stats. 18% of the time, they were penalized before the snap of the ball. The plays were coming in late. So now I got no, Hackett got what he deserved. That's all I'll say about that.
Related to Buddy Hackett, maybe?
No, his dad was actually a famous offensive coordinator, Paul Hackett. So
Paul Hackett.
Yeah.
What about that? I mean, Luggs will say LaFleur had a nice haircut, I think is what he's going to talk about, Matt LaFleur. But I don't know. The whole thing's kind of bizarre. But you say that's week 5, Broncos, Jets?
Yep. It'll be good. Hell, even Tomlinson, he chimed in and saying he's looking forward to week 5. So, I never heard Tomlin say anything.
Yeah, usually just a lot of grunts and, stuff in the microphone when it's a post-game presser. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I like that idea. All right, so let's move on to the next idea here. The Colts' Jonathan Taylor has asked to be traded. Owner Jim Irsay, who met with Taylor for an hour in his private trailer or bus at the compound, says there's no way I'm giving him an extension. The saga of running backs continues. T-Dog, what do you say?
Just to kind of go over the timeline, my favorite thing about it is so he was initially put on the PUP on July the 25th. Then the next day, Irsay talked with him about the situation on the bus. 3 days later, on the 29th, Taylor requested a trade. And then a report came out a day later. The Colts were considering placing Taylor on the non-football injury list, which would mean he essentially had an injury that didn't happen on the premises, which would allow them not to pay him because when you're on the PUP, you still get paid. Where if you're in the NFI list, you are not. I just find it very bizarre because this is a guy who won the rushing title in 21-22 season, and for his career has averaged over 5 yards a carry. And I know we're all it feels like, at least from talking about it a few times, we're all really kind of excited about Anthony Richardson and Steichen, their head coach, and clearly from his time with the Eagles, they know how to run the ball and they know how to use like a young quarterback who has mobility. And I think a big factor that can really make this work early on, his rookie year and maybe his second and third year, is having Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, because it's just having two explosive players out of the backfield that will stress defenses and, the stress in the field horizontally and vertically. I know this is going back to the broader picture, but you look at a lot of the defenses that are being implemented in the league now. A lot of them are influenced by Vic Fangio of Bears fame, and now he's with the Miami Dolphins. His defense is essentially dare teams to run because they just don't want to give up the big play. They sit in cover two shells, and once the ball snapped, they'll adjust, and maybe they aren't in cover two, but at least from the way they presented it. But like, they're essentially daring teams to run on them. And then you look at two of the best offensive minds in the game, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers and Arthur Smith with the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Shanahan traded for Christian McCaffrey, and then Arthur Smith drafted Bijan Robinson 8th overall in 2023. And again, I'm not saying there isn't value in analytics, but I'll just say this. Those are two of the guys that are on the cutting edge of what offense is in the league. You can't dispute like that there isn't some importance to having a running back who can do it all, because it masks your tendencies against defenses, where if you bring in a scat back, teams know you're going to either run a draw or a screen, or you're just going to throw the ball, or if you have a 2-down plotter back, you don't have to worry about having a linebacker go out in coverage with that guy, because he has pot holders for hands, so I don't know.
Lugs, just a few years ago, McCaffrey, big contract. Zeke Elliott, big contract. Big talk about Saquon Barkley. I'd say even like last year, certainly 2 seasons ago. Now it's a rubble pile, man, and looks like Mr. Taylor's the next one to be tossed on it.
Yeah. They're not going to trade him, because I don't think they could line up a deal for anybody that, whatever the bottom has dropped out of the running back market, it doesn't really matter. If I were those guys, I would become a slot receiver. Hell, slot receivers make far more and get extensions. But, Irsay, he has a history of being a quack. I'm sorry. He just does just stupid commentary. And, he thinks with the little head. I'll just let that go at that.
Wow.
Wow. So, and it's his team, so that's what's going to happen. But I think the only way you could make this happen is if they could come up with a team that would want Jonathan Taylor and come up with some sort of, they being the Colts, they're going to make it impossible for him to get out. Irsay's just going to rub his nose in it like a puppy.
Okay, I really was looking forward to Richardson-Taylor backfield myself. Excitement across the board, multiple weapons, run-pass option. Here you go, here I go, there we go.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll just say on it is this. Again, as much as I like running backs, I'm not ridiculous in that I think quarterbacks are more important. I believe like a pass rusher is more important, an offensive tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, D tackle that can really stop the run and has some explosiveness, and even like an offensive guard. But Cole Kmet, who I like for Chicago Bears, he just signed a 4-year deal worth $50 million and $32.8 million guaranteed. there's not one year where Cole Kmet has been a bigger impact X factor for their team's offense than Jonathan Taylor has, even with his worst year last year.
Completely agree.
So that's my main issue. Is I'm not saying they should be one of the highest paid teams, but like that. And as J Boy knows, as talented as Dalvin Cook is, that he is still sitting out there with us almost finishing the first year of our first week of training camp. It's very bizarre. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, the best player you should give money to be Evan McPherson, the kicker on the Bengals.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
But maybe I'm wrong about that. All right, I guess I am. Let's talk about our prediction time now. NFC West is what we're going to talk about this year. Last year, here's how they stacked up at the end of the season. The Niners were 13-4. The Seahawks came in at 9-8. Rams 5-12. The Cardinals were 4-13. So how's it look this year for 2023-24? Let's get it started. Lugs, who do you like in the fourth spot in the NFC West? I'm guessing.
Well, no doubt about it. It's the Cardinals. I mean, you got Kyler Murray, who's not going to play for probably 5 or 6 games starting the season. J.J. Watt's gone. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Buda Baker floated the idea of wanting out. He apparently got himself a little bit of extra money. And then you've got Gannon, the new head coach. I mean, this is just, it's a disaster. I mean, it's just going to be a disaster. That sums it up for me. I'm giving them a little juice. I'm saying 3-14. 3-14.
3-14 on the season. T-Dog, where do you stand on fourth place in the NFC West?
I feel there's a good chance that Lugs and I are going to be locked up on this. But it's Arizona Cardinals. They're at the bottom of the dumpster. Just like he said, Kyler Murray, I mean, he's probably going to miss most of the season with his torn ACL because it happened late last season. The scary thing for him is the person who's probably considered their backup, Colt McCoy, might not start the season either because he's coming back from a neck injury. So 5th rounder Clayton Thune is probably going to be their starting majority of their games.
Where did he play college ball, man?
Houston.
Wow. Okay.
Houston Cougar.
Yeah. Sure.
Their receiver core is a collection of good players in theory, but I would not say in execution. Hollywood Brown, I mean, he's shown flashes of being great, but there's just no consistency. And local player Rondell Moore, it's not that he doesn't have talent. We've said this I don't know how many years in a row, and unfortunately it just keeps happening. He just can't stay healthy. And Greg Dortch, he had a solid season last year, but he's the type of receiver you're always looking to replace. You know, I guess I'm going to look at the positive of it. Their secondary, like Lugs talked about, Buda Baker is not only the best player on the team, just flat out, but he's also the leader of this team. And Jalen Thompson is just a tackling magnet. He's had 2 years in a row where he's had over 100 tackles. And Marco Wilson really stepped up last year. He had 3 INTs, 10 pass defenses, and 1 forced fumble. But, man, their defensive line, a lot of defenses are set up by the pass rush. This unit is filled with guys who are green or bust. Speaking of bust, free agent L.J. Collier, who came from the Seahawks, he has yet to emerge, and he's entering year 5 of his career. Rashard Lewis has started 13 games in 3 seasons. And second-year player Cameron Thomas is transitioning from offensive linebacker to D-end. Probably the lone bright spot on the offensive line the defensive line is rookie B.J. Ojulari. I think he has the potential to be good, but, I mean, he hasn't played a snap yet in the league. So, I have them going 2-15, and I just want to say congrats on getting Caleb Williams.
Wow, he calls them basically the worst team in the league because they'll get the 1 pick in the draft. I'm going to keep this really short. Completely agree. Yes to 2-15. no Kyler Murray, no real quarterback, no Watt. What the heck is going on? I call it 2-15, worst team in the league. All right, let's move on. Second, let's make that third place in the NFC West. Lugs, who do you like there for this coming year?
It's the LA Rams.
Of course.
You know, they went all in the year they won the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl. And since then, it's all fallen apart. I mean, injuries, retirement, you name it, it's happened. I think this season, all they will have will be Stafford and Cup, and that's predicated upon the fact that both of those guys are healthy. So I think early in the season, if they start out healthy, they may be able to win. Their schedule lines up to where they may be able to win a few games. But yeah, they're looking to the future now. It's I don't know how their salary cap works, their draft capital. I mean, they traded absolutely everything away. So I don't know what's going to happen with these guys. It's going to take a while. It really is. I got the Rams going 6-11. 6-11.
6-11 for the third place. Rams, T-Dog, what do you got for number 3?
Yep. At show, I have Los Angeles Rams. I just think Sean McVay is really going to earn his fat paycheck this year. Stafford is 35 and he's hobbled. Aaron Donald is 32 and is the only known impact player on that defensive line. Cooper Kupp is 30 and he's surrounded by mostly slower receivers than himself. I mean, they brought in Mike LaFleur from the Jets for the offensive coordinator, which I think was a good move. If you look at the Jets, even with their offensive line problems last year, they could run the ball, which will be helpful because they need to protect Stafford, and they definitely need to protect that defense that is filled with I mean, saying unknowns is putting it kindly. Most of these guys are only going to be starters for the Rams, probably for their careers. And I'm not saying they won't have long careers, but mostly they'll be backups in other spots after this season. If I was to say this team has a strength, I guess it's receiver. I mean, Cooper Kupp won. He won the Triple Crown of receiving 2 years ago, and he was on his way to having a All-Pro season until Stafford got injured, and then he injured his ankle and was out for the rest of the year. They essentially shut him down. But Van Jefferson has exhibited. He could be a legitimate number 2, and I think he's a solid player. And Ben Skoranek, I mean, he gives you a big target that can run block, which is good. And local guy, Louisville, Tutu Atwell, he showed glimpses that he could be a deep threat. Already, though, that strength is kind of in question because today Cooper Kupp injured. It sounds like he tweaked his hamstring. So they really need to just put him in mothballs and just wait for the season to begin because they can't have him go down, period. Their weakness is their offensive line. Last year, it was their problem. I said it was going to be their problem last year, and they allowed 59 sacks, and some of that was because of injuries. They had over 14 different alignments last year. Now, to be fair, too, I had them winning the division, and they ended up being 5-12. So wow. I don't know anything.
Yeah. Yep.
So. Yep. But their weakness again is their offensive line. I'll start with the good. Right tackle Rob Havenstein has been a good pro for his career. Everything after him, though, is a mess. Their left tackle, who they paid decent money to last year, Joe Notebloom, he's still recovering from an Achilles injury. Rookie Steve Avila is probably going to be their starting guard. And then Logan Bruss, who missed his whole rookie year with a knee injury, he'll probably be playing the other guard spot. I have him going 4-13.
4-13. All right, for the third place Rams. Obviously, we're all going to agree on this. Lugs, what was that old country song? Another year older and deeper in debt. Wasn't that a line from
16 Tons?
What do you get? Well, that's what the Rams are. They're 16 tons.
Written, by the way, by Merle Travis, a Kentucky native. Okay, that's your bit of trivia.
And I'm glad you backed me up on that because you already mentioned it. You got Stafford, older. Donald, older. You've got Kupp, older. We all agree Stafford was a lucky guy 2 years ago to win that Super Bowl. And I think this will be McVay's last year as a head coach. He's going to take that last bit of sweet money. He's going to go move into a little more cheaper house, save up some cash, and next year he'll be on TV somewhere along with Kirk Cousins. That's another bold prediction for another time. But I don't think they're going to do much. Tutu's too small. He can't do too much. Okay,
oh,
never
my
mind.
goodness.
And I got him at, you guys got him at 4-13. Or T-Dog, you did. I got him at 5-12. I'll give him a break. That's my prediction. Third place. Okay, Lugs, second place in the NFC West. I think I know where you're going, but maybe I'll be surprised.
No surprise here. It's the Seahawks. You had Geno Smith last year play out of his mind. I don't think that will continue this year, but they've got their first round receiver is Jackson Smith and Najigba, and I think he will be a good one down the line. And strange of all strangeness, they brought Bobby Wagner back from L.A. on the defense.
That's right.
But he was among the top graded linebackers of last year. But when it comes right down to it, I just don't think they have the defense. They don't impress me on offense all that much either. But I am going to let them get over 500 like they did last year, 9-8. I'm calling 9-8.
9-8 for the Seahawks in the 2 position. T-Dog, what you say?
I have the Seahawks winning the silver. But again, last year I had them going 3-14. So
whoops.
Who's to say? I know what I'm talking about. I did predict that Geno would win the job, but obviously I didn't think he was going to do that well with 3-14 record. So I just want to give it up to Carroll and his coaching staff. I just think they did an exceptional job. Because looking at the roster last year, it felt like they didn't have anybody. So a lot of it was a lot of young guys they were able to kind of coach. I mean, they had the talent to be good. The coaching staff didn't instill that in them, but they got them on page. And just Geno Smith was such a great story. I mean, it was his third year with Seattle. He was, Russell Wilson's backup for multiple years, and he just emerged as a genuine Pro Bowler. I mean, he was a genuine Pro Bowler last year. And even though both the running backs got injured in training camp, when healthy, I think the 1-2 combination of Walker and Charbonnet is just going to allow them to stay in every game, because both those guys, Charbonnet is just kind of the pounder who can receive out of the backfield, and Walker's a guy who gets a crease and he can be gone. And I just love their secondary. I mean, they have 2 pickpockets and Woolen and Diggs, tone setters and Jamal Adams and Witherspoon, the rookie corner, their first overall pick. And Julian Love, they got in free agency, will be a leader and just be solid overall coverage skills. But the real strength of this team is their receivers. Just DK Metcalf is just a big explosive receiver who can outmuscle and outrun his coverage. You look at Tyler Lockett, he's just a fast technician that creates space with routes. And rookie Jackson Smith-Njigba is quick-footed slot that just seems to have a spider sense for open spaces for easy receptions. Again, it seems like it's a theme in this it is definitely not for the number 1 team, but it seems like it's a theme for this division. Their weakness is defensive line. This offseason, their whole defensive line is retooled. It's They added free agent defensive end Draymond Jones from the Broncos, who will give them some pressure. They added in free agent Jerron Reed, who gives them a vet who can dent the pocket. And then they added rookie nose tackle Cameron Young, who's essentially there just to clog running lanes. I mean, these are all 3 new starters, and they're going to take time to gel with the scheme and each other. I actually have them taking a step back, 8 and 9, just because of what their record was last year. I made their schedule harder this year, and I think that makes enough of a dip.
8-9 for your Seahawks. Wow, you guys are pretty brutal on the Hawks, the Squawks. All right, I've got a couple of thoughts. You've mentioned them already. DK Metcalf, for real. Geno Smith, like the guy a lot. I think he's got a lot of fire in the oven there in the furnace because he wants to keep that job. Came out of nowhere. We all know where he was before, and now he seems to have settled in. And the other thing I'm going to put a lot of money and stock on is Pete Carroll. Never used to like the guy. Always thought he had everything he needed and was easy to coach. But I think last year he made a big step forward in being a coach who could do a lot with not a lot. And so I'm happy about that. So I'm going to have them finishing second. And I'm also going to say a friend of the show, Johnny Schneider. He's a friend of the show. Well, let me preface that. I know his brother, and he might have heard we have a podcast, his brother Bill, through my brother-in-law Tim, who lives in Minnesota. So it's a long story, but maybe Johnny knows we have a podcast. But either way, I'm also picking the Seahawks to finish second, but I'm a little more generous than you boys. I think they'll one up last year. They'll go 10-7. 10-7 for the Squawkers, and just make them more respectable. Playoff possibility, who knows? We'll see. All right, so that leaves us with one team, one slot, Lugs, NFC West for the coming year.
Well, that's the 49ers, of course. They, pound for pound, have absolutely the best on both sides of the ball, except for the quarterback. We don't know exactly what his status is going to be, and I would imagine we're finally going to see Trey Lance.
Woohoo!
What do you got? What do you got? You know, they got Javon Hargrave from the Eagles on the defensive line with Nick Bosa. I mean, goodness, it's like just a wealth. They're just wealthy on both sides of the ball. If Purdy can come back and just manage the game, or if Trey Lance can just manage the game, they're going to have another fine season. But I'm at this point not having them do what they did last year. I'm going 12-5. 12-5.
The Niners 12-5 from Lugs. T-Dog. Obviously, it's the Niners for you, but how about them? T-Dog?
Your mic's off.
Sorry about that.
It's the cough switch.
I was going to say it was appropriate. The Niners get the gold, but that's what happens when you're not only rich with talent, but are just one of the best coached teams in the league. And I think it really starts with this isn't even the strength of the team, but I will say this: when healthy, I know I said this last year, the 49ers skill group is, I think, the league's ultimate picture poison. If you want to stop the run, Kittle will go up the seam, Debo will be on a screen, Ayuk will be on a go route, or McCaffrey will run a Texas route. And if you want to dare them to run, you'll have Kittle and Juszczyk essentially be twin wrecking balls, just blowing up, gaps. Ayuk possibly doing an end around, McCaffrey with his wiggle, or Debo essentially being like the semi from T2 Judgment Day, just going off the aqueduct and just smashing through things.
T2 Aqueduct. All right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. T2.
But speaking of strength, speaking of like semi trucks, that's that defensive line. Nick Bosa was the defensive player of the year last year, and he deserved it. 18.5 sacks, 19 tackles for loss, 48 QB hits. And then you want to add about what was their strength last year? It was their defensive line. So strength on strength. They add free agent from the Eagles, Javon Hargraves. He's a top interior pass rusher the past 2 years. So you add him with him. I think that we're talking about a multiplier effect, having those two guys going. I mean, good luck to offensive lines this year. Eric Armstead gives him a grizzled vet who can control the front. And second-year player from USC, Drake Jackson, I just think he should give them just another, I think he's one step away from, I'm not going to say he's going to be Bosa or anything, but I think he's going to be a quality pass rusher, and I think he takes that other step. And it's weird to say this is their weakness, but because of the like kind of what Lugs brought up, the uncertainty at quarterback is the only thing that makes me wonder about what they're going to be. Purdy is a full go. They're giving him rest during training camp, but he has taken reps with the starters, and then he gets rest days. But they need to be cautious with him. I still think Trey Lance has a high ceiling. I know maybe I'm buying all these dubious stocks. I've had
penny stocks. We call them penny stocks.
I took all those failed Rule stocks and I moved into Trey Lance, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Matt Rule, right? Yes,
yes. Trey Lance has durability issues, and it is kind of eye popping that he can't overtake Mr. Irrelevant, So, and then Sam Darnold, I've never been a big fan of him, but you look at what Kyle Shanahan has done with every quarterback. He has the potential to be unlocked, and if he's not unlocked in this, I hate to say his exodus to the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL is a real possibility.
The Tiger Cats.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Argonauts.
Toronto. Okay. They're having a fine season up there right now. Yep.
Yeah. I have them going 11-6.
Whoa.
And winning the division.
Pulling it back. 11-6. Okay. I think anybody could play quarterback for this team, and it wouldn't matter. Lugs could play quarterback on this team, and they'd still do well. Because all you got to do is get rid of the ball to guys like Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Just keep going. With Kyle Shanahan calling the plays, I think, fellas, all you got to do is take a 3-step drop and within 3 seconds get the ball to anybody, and I think you do okay. I think they're exciting. I think they've got a shot. I think Purdy is the real deal when he's healthy, and I think he'll be back. I think they'll work that so it's gingerly worked back into the mix for him. And they've got other guys who can fill in. Like you said, even Darnold could take a step and take a few snaps now and then. Me, personally, I've got them a little knocked back from their 13-4 last year, but I got them going 12-5, having a heck of a year. And I think this year, as opposed to last, they'll do better in the playoffs. I look for them to go real deep and real far. And we'll see what happens. But that's your NFC West.
I was just going to make one comment. At every position except quarterback, they have a former first-team All-Pro. When does that ever happen? I mean, everybody is first-team All-Pro except for the quarterback.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Crazy to me. Yeah, they better get that quarterback position shored up because – you can't hold a team like this. You can't hold all those players together for very long. It's lightning in a bottle, truly.
So, T-Dog, where is Matt Rule next year, this year? Slippery Rock Junior College, or where did he wind up?
Why am I blinking on top of it? He went. No, he's back in college. He's a starting head coach in a college. Let me see here.
We'll get the crack team to.
No, he's at Nebraska. He's a University of Nebraska. From the sound of it, it feels like Lugs doesn't believe he'll turn it around.
The ghost of Tom Osborne out there, Oh my gosh! Wow.
To be fair to y'all's points, I maybe I'm again just a sucker. I believe he can turn around, but I will add this caveat. To act like they're ever going to get back to Tom Osborne level, that's never going to happen.
Never.
Like the fans need to, if they want to enjoy the rest of their lives, they have to accept that window has closed and move on.
But the good news, they're part of the Big Ten, so they'll get a $90 million media paycheck this next year. So that might be worth it alone, and he'll get a little chunk of that. All right. Well, we'll see. Lugs, how about a little sports of yesteryear? You ready for that?
Okay.
Here we go. It's our big music, our big open here for our sports of yesteryear. He's going back out in the olden days in a Model T Ford like the guys used to do with those hats, and it said press on the front. It's Lugs with sports of yesteryear. Go ahead.
All right. 1921. After 3 hours of deliberation, a Chicago jury acquits 8 Chicago White Sox accused in the point-shaving Black Sox scandal. The next day, they were all banned from organized baseball for life. 1948, love this name, Fanny Blankers Koen of the Netherlands wins the 100-meter in 11.9 at the London Olympics, the first of unprecedented 3 individual track and field gold medals. You go, Fanny. 1967, New Orleans Saints play their first ever preseason game. They lose to the LA Rams 16-7 at Anaheim Stadium. 1992, Tom Seaver, Raleigh Fingers, Hal Newhouser, and Bill McCown are inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And finally, 2012, American swimmer Michael Phelps wins an unprecedented 3rd consecutive gold medal in the 200-meter individual medley in 1 minute, 54 seconds, and 27 tenths at the London Olympics. That completes this edition of Sports of Yesteryear.
Thank you, Lugs, for that insightful report about sports of yesteryear. Okay, let's talk about the Saints in 1967. Were those the days of Tom Dempsey, the kicker?
I thought he was Detroit, but I don't know.
T-Dog, any recollection of Tom Dempsey?
Sorry, I do not know. I do not know.
That's Manning, right?
Was he Oakland?
He was the quarterback. Yeah, I think it was Manning. Because he never, he took a beating all those years for nothing. So.
Well, we'll have to. Oh, here we go. He was with the San Diego Chargers.
Was he?
From
Manning?
the crack team. Saints from 69 to 70. I was right about that. Eagles 71 to 74. Rams 75-76. He got around, don't you know? Houston Oilers in 77 and Buffalo Bills 78 to 79. Well, that's quite a journeyman thing for the guy who held the record for the longest field goal for how long? 40 years?
A long time.
Yeah.
And he only had half a foot, right?
Yep, that's correct.
It was like he was hitting it with a block.
Yeah, Archie played for the Saints in 71 to 82.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who played for
It feels
in 67? Who was the quarterback? That poor dude.
I think it was just like a nice ribeye in a potato sack. Like I think that's the only way he could have survived.
Put a little dirt on it. It'll be fine. Okay, that's Tom Dempsey. It just brought me back to that time. He wasn't a svelte young man. He had a little poundage on him. You know.
Well, most of the guys from that era did.
He died
they were chunky.
A few years ago in 2022.
Oh.
2020. He was him. He was about 73 years old. Tom Dempsey.
Hey.
There you go. All right. So what else today on the big program? We've got plenty of time here if we need to talk about more.
I was just want to talk about Aaron Rodgers taking a pay cut.
We haven't had an Aaron Rodgers discussion in, 10 minutes maybe? Go ahead.
Well, and again, if you want to say, going back to Robert Saleh, if you ain't got haters, you ain't popping. Well, Aaron Rodgers is popping on this podcast. I think we could agree on that. If that's even a slang anymore, I really doubt it. But anyway,
yeah.
Aaron Rodgers agreed to slash $35 million out of his $110 million contract that he signed with the Packers that was left. By freeing up that money, I think they need to use it on their offensive line. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is close to 40. Mekhi Becton, another local guy. It sounds like he's very shaky in this training camp. He's in and out of even practicing. And when he does practice, he's not with the starting unit. And another guy who's out, who probably will be a starter when he's healthy, Dwayne Brown, who's had a great career at tackle. He's 37 years old. He's coming off shoulder surgery. So, again, you need to be careful with that. They just need to protect Aaron Rodgers for all the money they're giving this guy. And, again, Breece Hall, if he stayed healthy, I think the Jets do make the playoffs last year. Again, we talked about him a little early. Dalvin Cook, bring him in.
Yep.
Like, you could take your time with Breece Hall, let him get to 100%. Don't rush him back either. But again, where it comes back to being haters, it feels like this money slash on some level, he loved doing it because he got to screw with the Packers yet again.
He loves that. He lived for that.
Because in 2020, they drafted Jordan Love, and that set off the
Firestorm
revenge plot The long con that Aaron Rodgers did.
The long game.
Yep. The next year, in 2001, he requested to be traded on the day of the draft.
Yeah, just to make headlines. Remember that?
Yeah. And then in in 2022, he signed a 3-year, $150 million deal, the one that just got slashed by the $35 million. Then, after being paid one of the highest paid players in the league, the guy decides not to do OTAs, even though they lost Devontae Adams. And he never got on the same page with his young receivers. And he said he blew it off, being like, I've played in the system for a long time. It's better for my mind to be relaxed going into the season, being fresh or whatever. What's he do this year with the Jets? He does the OTAs, and also Hackett's there now. So, like, it's the same offensive system he's always liked. So it's like he doesn't need a system. So, like, again, he was just sticking it to Green Bay after making him one of the highest paid players. I'm just saying, Aaron Rodgers, big jerk.
And sticking it to the people of the great state of Wisconsin as well. And don't forget, in that final game, maybe the greatest moment in the history of the NFL, the Lions beat the Packers in that last regular season game. It was in primetime, you remember? And they kept the Packers from being in the playoffs. That was sweet, sweet justice. All right, anything else tonight, fellas?
I'm good.
All right, let's rip it off. Go ahead, T-Dog.
The last thing I just want to say, it should be buried in the show. I don't know what year it is. Let's get excited. It sounds like Nickelodeon worked out a deal. There will be a Super Bowl that will be aired on Nickelodeon. So I look forward to the championship of the whole NFL season having SpongeBob SquarePants show up and on the winning touchdown every time being slimed on. So
yeah, he'll be a color commentator on the sideline right next to Aaron Andrews, maybe. Wow, yes, it'll be a great day when that happens. You've been watching and listening to Sports and Other Stuff. We're brought to you in part by Faro Mobile Homes. Yes, cross that money-saving bridge for big savings. They're on the right going in, on the left going out, right where all them trees are. There's a guy in there tonight. We know him. His name is
Fish. And this week, the Fishman is celebrating the birth of Aura filmmeister Wes Craven. This Saturday at 1 p.m., we'll celebrate the man who gave us Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street and a host of stars, including Drew Barrymore in Scream and all of its sequels. We'll give trivia its due with questions like, what film did Craven direct that starred Meryl Streep? That's this Saturday at 1 p.m. with an outdoor viewing of Nightmare 3, Once the Sun Goes Down.
Why, thank you, Lugs. This has been Sports and Other Stuff. We are the Sport Weasels, and we're home of millions throughout mid-America. Well, give or take a few. So long for now.